Yeah.
And then I said, hey man, go east. Would you need a compass?
No, like they just always know which way north is. Like, it's because it's so important. They don't have a word for left and right.
Right.
And I don't know how to answer this one, but how do you describe left and right to someone who has never heard of those concepts?
Well, I tried it with my kids. You know, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I try to describe left and right. And my daughter, one of the ways that I mean, this doesn't make any sense other than showing her.
Right.
Is, I say, make the letter L with your hand.
Right. And the one that looks like an L is your left.
No. The one that points, like, say, is it pointing? If, like, this is what I say. Like, if you're looking at me.
Yeah.
And you're writing, you know, like, say you're writing the name of Laura.
Yeah.
Like, where's your thumb pointing? That's pointing towards your left. And if you hold your hand up and your hand makes an L, see where your index finger, that's the left.
That's the left, yeah.
So this one's pointing to the left, this one is the left.
But you've got to make sure that you're not looking at your hands with palms facing you, because then the L is made by the right hand.
Yeah. So if you hold your hand up, I guess, and that is the L, like it forms it, that's the one that is the L. So if you hold your hand up and you see an L in front of you, that's the left.
Right.
And if it's holding your other hand up and it's making an L to the other person, but that's confusing. Like, get a little kid to write on a window, like the one, like steamy, like if they're taking a shower, write your name so that I could read it.
Do they get that?
No, they always write it the wrong way, and then you got to show them how to do it the other way, and they go, okay, but it's so squirrely in their head. It's like, oh, it's like, no.
I find that stuff fascinating. How kids have to develop some of these ideas about the world, like the old constancy of volume, or what is it really called? Things stay the way they are when you're not looking. Like a really small kid will even think that, like, when they don't see you, you're gone. Like, peekaboo is a really terrifying and amazing game to a child.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking like a baby.
Right.
But then look this up on YouTube. They show an experiment where you take two different size containers. One's really tall and skinny, and one's short and fat. And the tall, skinny one's full of water. And then they pour the water into the other container, and they're like, which one has more water? Like, which one's bigger now? And clearly, the same amount of water is still there. You just saw them pour the water. No water was taken away.
Right.
But a kid doesn't get that yet. They think that, oh, well, it's not nearly as tall, this other glass, so there must be less water. And they'll grill the kid, like, well, where'd the water go? And the kid won't even know, but will insist that there's less water now because it looks smaller.
Is that a perception thing, like an animal thing? Like larger, taller things are more dangerous?
Yeah, I'm sure that it's like that's what matters, and it takes a while to understand the less needed for survival process of realizing, oh, that's actually stayed constant.
That kind of makes sense when you think about how animals will make themselves look bigger.
Yeah.
Like their hair sticks up on their back in order to give them a sense of, or an appearance of having more mass.
Yeah.
You know,
growing.
Bears will stand up on their hind legs. And they tell people, like, if you encounter certain animals like mountain lions, you should make yourself look bigger. Like wave your arms, get larger. If you have someone with you, like a child, put them on your shoulder.
Wow.
And make it look like it's a bigger thing.
Right.
Yeah. It's like appear more of a larger.
And that tricks the animal.
Yeah, they're dumb as shit. Yeah, they're dumber than
Well,
kids.
it's fun to watch these kid experiments because you're like, oh wow, kids are dumb. They think that, you know, this is any idiot could tell you.
Well, it's not that they're dumb; it's that they haven't come across this problem yet to solve, so they don't have the data yet.
Exactly.
Like, there's a difference between dumb and a lack of data. When you have a person and they're 50 years old and they still think that the world is flat and they still think the Earth is 6,000 years old and they still think, well, that's a dumb person. That's like the data they've processed.
They've been exposed to the evidence.
They've been exposed to 50 years of Western civilization, and their perceptions of life it's insane.
Yeah.
Given the data that's available, that's a dumb person. But a baby is just this bundle of potential that just doesn't have any data yet. And so like they're just acting on, you know, like what seems to make sense from an evolution evolutionary standpoint or from a genetic standpoint.
Yeah.
They're animal instincts. Very bizarre.
Yeah.
The idea. Also, the idea that this is all changing and growing, and then your children will have the benefit of the information that you've accumulated over your life, like through epigenetics. And it's going to somehow or another pass to your children, and they'll
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
Hmm.
Well, they say that certain things, like even racism, can be passed down to children.
You mean genetically?
Genetically.
Chemically. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of evidence for that kind of stuff, but there was a famous experiment where a guy taught worms to move through a maze, and then he like ground them up and fed them to some other worms, and those worms like knew how to solve the maze without having to be taught. But it's never been replicated. But wouldn't that be cool if we found out that there was like a chemical basis for memory?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, they have shown that they've taken, I believe it was mice, and they used a certain smell. And when that certain smell was introduced to the mice, they gave them a chemical shock, or they gave them an electrical shock on their feet. And the children of those mice, when exposed to that smell, like a citrusy smell, they would have a panic attack.
Really?
They would have this panicky moment where they anticipated being shocked.
Huh.
Because it was programmed into their DNA that smell equals danger. That smell equals pain or discomfort.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's different than just natural selection, where you say, well, the mice that just naturally didn't like that smell were the ones that lived longer, procreated more, and so that's why.
Well, I think that's probably true as well.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things like when we're talking about conspiracies. You know, well, people, can it just be a random coincidence? Yes, it can be. But there's also evidence that people conspire.
Right.
So there's both. And we have this tendency to want to wrap things up in a nice, neat little bow. So the concept of natural selection, well, there's natural selection. It's very simple to explain. It's natural selection. No, natural selection is a factor. That's also a fact. It's not like it's non-existent. No, that happens as well. But then there's also this weirdness. There's this weirdness where information is transferred. Like, I've done jiu-jitsu since 1996 is when I started. So and I've also been a commentator for more than 1,000 professional fights.